25th.
July 25th, school board meeting of the Derry Cooperative School District. We'll get started with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Oh, there we go. Apologies for the misstep. As you guys can see, we're all in a new place tonight, so we'll be getting used to some of the technology that is new to us, but thank you all for coming. We will start the night off. We'll move on to the approval of the June 20th meetings. We have non-public meetings that need to be approved, so I will take a motion to approve the June 20th non-public meeting minutes. Oh, sounds like we have a change.
A quick change. Chairman Dugan was not here that night. That would be my name instead there in the first line.
All right, we have a change. I'm assuming we have to vote on the change to make that change. So all in favor of making that change in the non-public notes from July 20th?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, I'll make the motion to pass. Sorry, geez. Let's try. Guys, it's been a while since I've been back here. I'll make a motion to change the non-public minutes from Chairman Dugan to Vice Chair Clapp. Anybody second? All right, second by David. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, now we move on to approving those minutes from the non-public session on June 20th.
Motion to approve.
First by Kearney, second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right. Move on to the public minutes from June 20th. We have a motion to pass those as is.
Motion to approve.
All right, we have first by Kearney,
Second.
second by Jason. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. With that, we will pass it on to Austin to do some personnel updates.
Okay. I have some resignations. Janelle James, math interventionist, Gilbert H. Hood Middle School. Karen LaPlante, special education reading specialist, Derry Village Elementary School. Colleen Lent, teacher, Ernest P. Barker Elementary School. Kelsey Pessia, special education teacher, Grinnell Elementary School. Kara Saranich, special education facilitator, Grinnell Elementary School. Looking for approval of their resignations with regret.
Motion to approve with regret.
We have a first by Kearney,
Second.
second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And I have one nomination for our newest assistant principal over at West Running Brook Middle School, and I'm going to introduce the principal to introduce her. So if you two would step up to the microphone, I'm going to introduce principal of West Running Brook, Mitch Edwards.
Thank you, Austin. Thank you very much, everybody. I have the pleasure this evening of introducing my awesome new assistant principal sitting next to me. Her name is Alyssa Frost. We went through the interview process, and we put Alyssa through the ringer. We did quite a few things in a short period of time. It was a crunch to find the right person. Alyssa absolutely nailed it. In fact, we closed her interview, and everyone sitting next to me looked to me and said, "Can we stop now?" Of course, the answer was no, and we interviewed quite a few really high quality candidates, but it was very clear that our choice was Alyssa Frost. I'll let her speak to you a little bit about the credentials that she comes to our district with. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here in Derry. I do have 3 daughters in the district, so I was thrilled to have this opportunity to join such an amazing team and to be part of the education that my kids are getting, and I know how wonderful it is. Previous to this, I was a 6th grade teacher for 14 years in Nashua. And the last 2 years, I've been doing some instructional coaching in the Hudson School District, working with teachers and students to improve instruction and working with curriculum. I really miss kids, and my middle schoolers have my heart, so I'm very, very excited to have this opportunity to work with our kids at West Running Brook, and looking forward to a great year.
Excellent. Well, welcome to the district. Yeah, welcome, I guess. You've been around, yeah. Thank you for joining our team. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Alyssa or Mitch?
I'm going to re-ask a question that got asked in non-public. What is it that you are going to focus on first and foremost when the students and staff come back?
Relationships is my goal. Really making it a positive place to be, both for adults who are in the building and for students. Ensuring that we're working together as a team, fostering those relationships to build collegiality between, our staff, and ensuring that students are getting the best possible education, but through positive relationship building is my goal.
Excellent. Well, enjoy the rest of your summer.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out tonight, and good luck this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You gonna play some golf in a couple weeks? No?
You do not want me on your team. Just saying. I already told Mitch.
Jonathan, do you need a motion to approve that?
I was just thinking that.
Move to approve.
Don't go away yet.
So we have a motion to approve from Brenda,
I'll second it.
second from Michael. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Welcome to the
Seeing none?
district.
You pass 7-0.
Welcome to the Derry Cooperative School District.
All right. I believe that is it for personnel, Austin. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. So I think we are now moving on to, we have an update from the first student transportation contract, and I believe that's going to be presented by Cliff.
Hopefully, it's the last time I will speak to this. About a couple of days after the board voted on the contract, David Fairweather sent me an addendum to Schedule A, which included the field trips, extracurricular activities, and bus monitor rates. At first, that was a 64333 increase, and we got him to reduce it to a 3333, which is exactly the same as the previous contract. And so what you have in your packet is those rates. We actually budgeted for the full contract at a much higher rate, so we'll come out way ahead with all of this because of what we budgeted. So it's for you to approve or disapprove, but hopefully this will be the end.
I guess before we re-vote on that or whatever, does anyone have any questions for Cliff or any comments about the first student update that we got? I just want to reiterate what you said, Cliff. So the contract that we had previously had 3% for the co-curriculars. We had budgeted for 6% for the first year and then the 4,333, right?
Actually, we budgeted for the 16%.
Okay, and so we had passed we'd voted on the first student contract. They came back, they said, hey, this was not included in the contract, and then they obliged us and went to the pre-existing rates that we had on the current, or I guess the previous contract, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, perfect. All right, I believe how we will probably have to handle this is we'll have to amend the original re-vote on the original contract. So I guess the first motion we'll have to make is to rescind that vote. Do we have a motion to reconsider? I'll make the motion to reconsider the first student contract. Is there any seconds?
Second.
All right, we have a first by Jonathan, second by Jason. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
All right. Motion passes 5-2. So now we will revote on the,
Kathleen was asking who was the two.
sorry, what was that?
Kathleen was asking who the two were.
Okay, oh, sorry. So now I'll entertain a motion to vote on this updated contract with the corrected rates. I'll make the motion to accept the first student contract as we received tonight. Any seconds?
I'll second that.
Okay. I should have done this last time, but any comments? Good discussion. All right, we'll take a vote. All in favor of this contract? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Two again were David and Brenda, nays. The motion passes 5-2. All right, and so now that that's done, we will move on to facilities. I believe we're going to pass it over to Austin and possibly Joe to give us a presentation, an update on kind of the reconfiguration plan, and then after that, we will also have a discussion about the last facilities committee meeting that happened, I guess, was that last week? 2 weeks ago, sorry. So, floor is yours, Austin.
Yeah, we've got a couple of things. The district restructuring project plan that the SAU leadership worked on, as well as Joe is going to give an update on where the curriculum work has gone with the committee of 40 or so members. So if we can get the district restructuring project plan up. I thought we had to go to the,
Just clear this out here.
that's it? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so one of the major things that the school board was looking for, and honestly, it helps all of us as well, is at the top of the page where it lists the categories and some that have started already, some that the curriculum, for instance, as Joe's going to give an update, you'll find is almost nearing its completion. And this will give the reason some of these are so extended is because there's a lot of work that has to be done behind the scenes and a lot of things before some of these will go to committee. Along with that this is broken down, as you can see, into the categories: curriculum and co-curriculars, special education, redistricting, transition, staffing, facilities, and transportation. So what we'd like to do is entertain any questions the board may have. Number one, you wanted this provided so that you could have that, you can have an idea. We do believe that this is somewhat of a working document, depending on how things happen down the road. We're hoping that this is pretty much how it's going to look and how it's going to go, but we also want to point out that depending on what happens as we move along, some of these might get adjusted somewhat. But does the board have questions at this point?
Brenda? Oh, sorry.
Jason, go
Oh,
first. He was ready to
sorry.
go.
I saw you raise your hand. Sorry. Go ahead. Jason.
So first, thank you. This is outstanding. I know a lot of us have been asking for clearly defined kind of project plan and where things are going. Joe, maybe you're going to address, but I mean, I'd like to Austin kind of spoke to the curriculum updates. What I'd like to see at some point is similar to what Jane provides with a business administrator update. I'd like to hear from you guys with regards to what's going on with curriculum, co-curricular activities, sort of the boots on the ground stuff that you're hearing and seeing as these committees meet and as you're visiting other districts. I think it's beneficial for all of us here, but more importantly for parents at home and folks in the community to understand kind of exactly the work that's being done, the learnings, the watchouts, any takeaways, and kind of all of the data that you're going to utilize to formulate and really craft that plan as we move forward. But I think, you know, for me, this is outstanding, a great start, and I mean, I couldn't be more excited to get that document last week. So thank you for that. And then the other piece, so it says that the survey teaching staff about preferences, the survey is complete. Will you be presenting the results of that survey? Are you kind of compiling the information that was shared? I think that would be good to sort of understand if there's any kind of top watchouts or top asks or top concerns or things like that that you can kind of, obviously you guys will utilize that information as you move forward, but I think just for transparency purposes, I know I'd like to see it, and I'm sure folks in the community and parents and things would like to understand kind of what the teachers are saying and how they're feeling. I know at my job, we do employee engagement surveys, and it's all anonymous, and the results are shared, but I think that'd be good to kind of see and hear some of the concerns, and it will help, you know, at least for me, with decisions and my thoughts moving forward. But awesome job, and thank you.
So I would say both of those questions, I'm going to turn this over to Joe because part of what we wanted to do tonight was give an update on what him and Kim Conant have been working on with the stakeholders. So, Joe?
Thanks. Yeah, so we will, I want to talk real briefly about the curriculum, co-curriculum work that Kim and I have been working on along with some of you folks in those meetings. In terms of the staffing stuff, I think Kathy and Laura have been working on that group. I know the survey really was around preferences, staff preferences of would you like to work in, what grade level is your preference, what grade span preference would you prefer, things like that. So we did compile all that, and I'll leave it to them to see if there's a good way to share that sort of high-level information at the board level. But in terms of the co-curriculum, so as you guys know, we formed a group of stakeholders that included some parents, some teachers, some administrators. I think there's actually one staff member who's not a teacher, so I think she's an assistant or a paraprofessional. And Kim and I have been facilitating, and three board members here were invited to those meetings. We've had 4 meetings so far, and we have one more scheduled in August. That team has been really focused on looking at different instructional models for the 5-6 school through sort of investigating the other schools around the state that use this model, by prioritizing things that are important to us here in Derry, by sort of vetting all sorts of different scenarios and ideas. We had was it 3 or 4 group presentations last time we met? Was it 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
So we had teams break up into teams and propose some different models. We had presentations, and then we've been voting just as a way of understanding how people are feeling. At each meeting, we have people say, where's your head at in terms of the instructional model that you think is best fit for our kids? And so we've been consistently doing that, and so we've started to build a pretty strong consensus. There's no unanimous feeling like it's absolutely everybody on one side, but it has coalesced around sort of a consensus. So we brought we did a report for this SAU leadership team that went out this week. And our next step, according to this, is to get input from admins who maybe were not part of that process. We want to see, because some of the, I know Kim gets frustrated when I say this phrase all the time, sometimes the devil's in the details, so you really do need to explore the logistics of a plan from an administrative perspective. How is this going to work? So that's our next step. And then our goal, what we'd like to do is present a proposal to you folks in August, at the August school board meeting, which would be an overview of what the instructional design plan, schedule, and when I say staffing, I just mean the organization of staff at the school. And you know, how we're going to be grouping teams together and things like that. We'd like to present that to you guys in August. So it'll be really fleshed out by then. I don't know if I answered all your questions. I know Brenda has questions, so maybe we'll see.
Mine aren't curriculum, although I will say, I would like to see the minutes from the meetings on the website along with the facilities minutes, because they're not there. I wasn't able to attend the last curriculum meeting, and I went back and looked, but they're really not minutes. That doesn't give me information about what happened there. And I'll agree with Jason, this is a lot of good information, but it's not a lot of good information when I get it today. You must have got it last week for facilities?
No, this came to us today.
Yeah. You know, I saw it come into my email, but I didn't have time to really look over, and it's, like I said, it's good information, but it's really hard to have a discussion about something when you have a lot of documents that have a lot of information and be able to go over it and go back and look at notes about what's happened in the past year and tie them to this. So if we could have things like this sooner than the day of the meeting, that would be fabulous. And you know, kind of like what Owen said, if I have it sooner, I can be better prepared. Have we gotten someone to assess the SAU building?
Okay, I'm finding my knees are a little too tall for the underneath here. I'll have to remember that in the future. Jane Samad, who's on vacation this week, she's at a conference, I apologize.
She's not on vacation.
I did not do that on purpose. Has reached out, nothing as of yet, but is looking to get that information. It's going to take a little bit of time, but she is looking into, and will give an update and may have information at the next meeting.
And real quick, like I said, I really haven't had a lot of time to look at this, but the facilities information. So are we going to have actual costs for everything that has to be done to retrofit every building that we're going to retrofit for everybody in October? We're going to have real numbers.
No,
I'm not aware of whether or not we would be able to put all of that information together for October, but some decisions will come forward through the Facilities Committee that will help us with, what are we doing with DEEP, and are we moving the SAU right away? Are we holding off, and those kind of things. We're already going through looking at and have included Jeremy and Rob from maintenance in things like what stays in the rooms, what moves, whether or not we're going to get a contract with a moving company for the larger amount of moves that we have to make, how much can stay within a building, how much has to go. So we are going to look at producing that information, whether or not it will be all ready by October with actual prices, I can't say as of yet. But I understand that it's necessary and it's information that we need to provide.
I'm done. I'll hold the rest of my stuff for later.
I'm just going to say, is this on? I can never tell if this is on here. Anyway, this timeline is great. I'm glad that we finally have something like this. This is something that I have been looking for. And I would like to see us, every meeting, get regular updates on this timeline. Where are we with each of these items? Do you have any updates on any of these items? Is there anything, where we're not on track, where we are on track? I would love to, every meeting, you know, like this is, you know, this is the most important thing to people in this district right now, and they want to hear about it. You know, all that, the questions that we've heard over the last month since, you know, we voted on the school is, you know, all sorts of these kinds of questions, the decisions that need to be made along the course in this timeline. And when are we going to know? You know, when are we going to redistrict? You know, is there going to be a playground at West Runningbrook? You know, all these kinds of things. And it's nice to see a timeline of when we're going to have answers to those questions. So, yeah, it is, you know, it's very nice to have a timeline laid out of everything that we need to do. And then, yeah, in terms of the, you know, where we are with the facilities, I think that's going to come up. You have the LaValle Brensinger proposal on the table also to discuss later, so I think that's going to come in when we talk about that.
Just one more thing to add on the plan. Something that may be beneficial would just be the who, or the how many people, like who is responsible for what, as it relates to the milestones, or what group or what committee or what individual from the SAU team is kind of handling that, just for an accountability piece. And it's transparent, everything's above board, we know who's doing what, so any questions can be directed to that individual or to that group.
I just want to say thank you for putting this on. This seems very loud. I just want to say thank you for putting this together. Like similarly, others have said, I think it's really important to provide this type of timeline, both for us and the community. And I think it, as Jonathan said, answers a lot of the questions that we've been going on. But similarly, having this update in time, I think would be really helpful. But thank you both for putting this together.
I was also going to say, I know the website is a whole other thing, but it would be nice to have, you know, this up on the website, and also to post, you know, regular updates for people, so the community has a portal they can go to and see where we are with the various things on this timeline. It's like, as we know, not everybody watches these meetings and sees, you know, what we're talking about. So it would be nice to have something out there where we can direct people. You know, you want to see everything that's going on with the restructuring plan, here's where it all is.
Paul, David? Nothing? All right. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go.
Guys, I do appreciate this. Is very good information. I mentioned it last week when we met, or whatever time it was. This is very good. Just to piggyback on what Brenda said about you know, costs and whatnot. So what I would, you know, if we're looking at a situation where we're running tight on time, focus on the material items to get cost estimates so we can have them for the budget process. And any warrant articles we have to worry about or think about. I know in our planning sessions, we had targeted October as the date to talk about, to have warrant articles ready to go. So do the best you can with that, but prioritize obviously the bigger items. I assume the middle schools would be an area of concern, right?
Along those lines, and Brenda's line, when I say, I don't want to speak for Jane when she's not here, but she keeps emphasizing that we're going to need these type of things because we're going to be putting together a budget for 24, 25. So she keeps bringing us back to, okay, that's some information that we are going to need for the budget, which is why it has an October date. You know, when you're relying on some outside companies and so forth to give us information, that's why you get a little bit scary. But the idea would be to have as much, if not all of that information in October, because we're going through we're going to get going on the budget process.
Can I ask what place the curriculum committee is going to have in this process? I know that you have the curriculum with the teachers and the facility staff and the parents, but the actual school board curriculum committee, is there any intersection there that we're going to bring that to that committee?
Yeah, so that's a good point. So I believe the 3 members of the curriculum committee were involved in some part of this process, but I think prior to us doing a proposal here, a presentation at the August 22nd meeting, we should have a school board curriculum committee subcommittee meeting where we kind of go over it. And that
Yeah,
seems to be
agree.
reasonable, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what we have.
Perfect. I actually have a couple questions. This may be, I don't know, semantics or nitpicky. What's the difference between in progress and on track?
We started it.
Yeah, it's a good question. So in progress is we've actually taken some steps and we've done some things. On track is it's still on the horizon and we have no concerns about the timeline. But it's typically a lot of the on track stuff. It's waiting for other things, chips to fall. But anything that says in progress, we have already started that. And you know, for instance, Laura's already communicated with Department of Ed about beginning the program approval process. So like we said, that's in progress. It hasn't actually been completed yet.
I haven't gotten an email yet
But
back yet.
but we've got contact out to them and we're waiting on them for an answer.
Perfect. Yeah, I would echo some of the sentiments of my fellow board members as well. Yeah, I'd like to, even, like you said, as well as Joe, the reaching out to New Hampshire Department of Ed program approval process, right? Like, yeah, we've reached out. I guess, when do we expect that to be completed? It's going to be hard to figure out without them responding. But yeah, as Michael alluded to, constant updates through the website, you know, I think yet having, you know, if it's not every other week, then at least major updates when they come out. We'll have discussions about them and be presented to the public. But yeah, I'd say at least once a month to get, you know, to bring this back, if not every meeting. I also agree with, you know, making sure we're not just looking into getting the SAU assessment, that we actually have a plan to get those. And then I guess the other thing is if we're looking, what was that? The cost for the renovations and the retrofitting, if we haven't started that process now, I think for any of these, right, this is just one example, but if we see that, you know, it's not going to be an October timeframe and it, you know, it gets pushed, I'd rather have that information earlier. I'm a person that generally follows the bad advice doesn't get better with time. So delays are not necessarily good news. They're just things that do happen. But as these updates come, yeah, just keep us in the know, keep the public in the know, I think. But all in all, like I said, I think this is really important. It's very palatable, it's very easy to consume, and it gives a pretty good high-level understanding of, hey, these are the things that we're working on, and here's the kind of the framework and kind of what the future is going to be looking like for the district. So I appreciate you guys putting this together and the work around the facilities. I know, Austin, you'd said this was all you guys had from this standpoint. So I know we'd talked about one of our goals is having, you know, specifics around what the reconfiguration plan, I guess, is that the next step in looking at August is we'll kind of have more of will this be kind of more defined, or will we get something more specific to, you know, even what the facilities look like? And I don't know, maybe this is melding it or starting to go towards the next conversation of the last facilities committee meeting. I don't know if that's, maybe we should segue to that. I don't know.
So as Joe mentioned, curriculum is going to be really at a stage of this is the plan that we're thinking is going to be best. So that's going to be, you know, you're seeing here when you look at that district restructuring project plan across the top, that September of 2023, we're looking to have, and you know, it goes to you folks in August. There may be discussions, there may be need to go back and tweak some things and so forth and so on. But that's going to be moving along, and we will be looking at all of these areas and giving those updates that have been requested. Each, whether it, as you said, whether it be each of those meetings at least once a month, or you know, if things happen more frequently, we'll do it at. We're going to have these facilities discussions as you put into the agenda throughout the year. So we are expecting to have input and information at those.
So I'll give a brief update. We had a facilities meeting 2 weeks ago. So tonight, or earlier today, you guys received a LaValle Brensinger kind of proposal. in no way are we voting on this tonight. This was more of just getting it out there. I didn't expect to see this for another couple weeks. So this is really just getting it out there and kind of having you guys look at it and review it. You get a month, get another month. So, but from that meeting, we invited Jay from La Valley Brensinger to our facilities meeting, and we kind of outlined the sentiment that was discussed at the June 20th meeting by many board members on moving forward with the new school project again. From that meeting, we gave Jay some parameters to look at, to, update the current renderings, drawings, process that we did last year. Obviously, things have changed from K through 5 to K through 4 now, so there's some tweaks and things that need to be updated. So you'll see all that information in this proposal that we discussed, and obviously we'll discuss in more detail at our next meeting and hopefully vote at that meeting whether to move forward or not with La Valley Brensinger on a new school project with the expectation that we will have a warrant article on this March's ballot.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
This is really frustrating to me because we have disrupted, again, the district. We let people know their school was going to close when they didn't know it was going to close until that night, which is very sad and disappointing to me. But we're also going to move forward with building a new school. Why are we disrupting the district if the plan of the board is to build a new school? We're going to make people mad. They're not going to like this total disruption of the district, so now they'll support a school? Like, what is that plan? If you're going to build a school, then put that forward and move forward. I didn't agree with it, but nobody did anything with it either last year. So if that's what you're going to do, then don't do what we're doing. Don't reconfigure the district. Move forward with what you believe is best.
Along the same lines, I was looking at this and I said to myself, we're taking a big, huge bite and trying to swallow it at one time when we should be focusing on the immediate issue at hand that we voted on, was to reconfigure the district and to build a new school. The other thing that concerned me, and I'm glad that this is not a vote tonight, it's just information, but I'm looking at this and I'm saying, this is, in my opinion, is a substantial amount of money here for things that appear to be nebulous. That's not to say that they're not necessary or that they're not worthy of doing, but there's no specificity attached to it. And whenever we have a contract, or whenever anyone with any modicum of common sense signs a contract, it's a two-way street. You know what you're going to pay, and you also know what the vendor is going to agree to give you for that. And I'm reading this over and I'm saying to myself, okay, these are the big picture, but what specifically do we get? And the other thing is that the timing, as Brenda just said, the timing is that, if we're going to start getting projected costs on things that are going to occur or that we feel are going to occur 2, 3, or more years down the road, how germane and how relevant are those figures going to be? I'm always very wary about paying people to give us estimates on things that aren't going to be right then and now done. There are too many variables. There are too many potential variables down the road, and then when we decide to do whatever it is that we decide to do, we have to go about our business and get whatever estimates there are then anyhow. So, paying for the same real estate twice is, for lack of a better term, a sucker's game. And I'm just not all warm and fuzzy about necessarily the way that it appears to be outlined, not necessarily the fact that we're going to be doing it or not. If we're looking at, for instance, South Range School, a park, which, great plan, I guess, but we haven't voted to do anything with South Range School except to continue to fix it and keep it open. I don't know why we're going to be paying for a plan to do something that is going to be projected goodness knows how many years down the road. So I think that, yeah, we need to walk before we run here. This is with respect to the plan anyhow, and to the LaValley. And I have no issues with LaValley. I think that they've done a good job for us, and I'm happy with the product that we've received. But that was with respect to this particular proposal. Thank you.
Fair enough. I guess I will answer Brenda's question first, since she asked it. So, we have a plan that we're moving forward with for the consolidation, which we all know the numbers. We've talked about them ad nauseum. We saved $2 million year over year. We're at a point in our district where we have no money. We have tens of millions of dollars of repairs, and we said it, this first step that we're taking, that these guys are taking, gets us into a direction where we're trying to dig out of a massive hole that we're in right now with a shovel the size of this pen. So, yes, that's the first step of the process that we voted on last year. We took the information from the June 20th meeting where a majority of the board members articulated their vote of approval to move forward with the new school again. So, we're not independently going to our facilities meeting and independently making decisions. We're listening to the majority of the board and what they told us, and that's how we move forward. And this here is very preliminary. This is to start the process. We had one meeting, they put it together. We can hack that. We got a month to go through this, make any amendments, work with Jay. We'll have another facilities meeting in August before the meeting in the end of the month. We'll go through all this. You don't like, so yes, we have to be able to do more than one thing at a time. We are in a situation where our budget is moving up at a rapid rate, and our repairs are going along with that rapid rate. And we have no money to do the repairs in a significant volume unless we make some significant decisions that are uncomfortable, that yes, they aren't ideal, but until somebody brings something better to the table, I'm all ears. But in my opinion, and the majority of the board's opinion last year and this year, seems to be this direction. And, until we vote otherwise, we need to be nimble and we need to move forward in a way that doesn't stall the progress we're trying to make. Because I don't have to tell you, we have a lot of work to do from a repairs perspective. So to answer your question, Brenda, that's my answer, and that's something I've been echoing for the last year and a half that I've been on this board. And Paul, I hear you. We can beat this up, we can talk about it, and we can amend it and move forward. This is a first draft, so we can do whatever we need to do to get everyone's comfort level before we vote, obviously. In my opinion, and the facilities committee as well, we all agreed that moving forward with a new school at this time is the best road possible, because we have no idea whether it will pass and how long it will take to pass. We can't pick one or the other here. We have to move forward. And wasting a year without putting it on this ballot, it just didn't seem like a prudent or rational decision. We need to pick a path. We picked one last year. A lot of people articulated this path as well, and we need to move forward and work towards that, because we need to figure out a process that works, and that's where we came to that decision in the meeting, and, you know, I guess that's my answers.
I think it's important to remember that everything that we're talking about today came out of a decision, you know, to look at improving our facilities and all of the repairs that need to be done. You know, the vote to close the school has nothing to do with saving money. It has to do with finding the money to do the work on the buildings that we have. Every building in this district, really except for Barca, needs significant heavy renovations. You know, we have buildings in this district, you know, Hood opened in, what, 1955? There are sections of Hood that have barely received more than a coat of paint and new carpet since 1955. Every building in this district needs tens of millions of dollars in repairs or renovations. So, you know, what we need to be talking about now is not just a new school to replace the 1965 buildings that were built very cheaply, and you know, to spend the amount of money that it would cost to build a new school to even renovate those buildings just doesn't make sense, because you're not going to get as good of a building as you're going to get by just tearing them down and building new. And as a, you know, a part of all of this too, we can't forget that, you know, we're talking about a new school to replace the 1965 buildings. We also need to do significant repairs or full renovations at Grinnell, at Gilbert H. Hood, at West Running Brook, which isn't even that old but still needs significant work, and at East Derry. All of those schools need significant renovations or, you know, complete total renovations. So, you know, that's what we're talking about. We are extremely early in this process. You know, down the road, we need, you know, we're going to need to systematically repair or renovate all of these buildings. We're talking about a lot of money. So, you know, getting, and these buildings, you know, this stuff has been deferred over many years. These buildings are surviving on equipment that is well past its, you know, useful service life. You know, things that, you know, our maintenance department does a great job keeping everything going, but all of these buildings have critical systems and fixtures that are long past their usable service life. And, you know, I mean, we really need to look at a long-term plan where we're not only building a new school, but we also need to renovate virtually all of the other ones.
I just want to say, I respect what you had to say here, and I think the couple of things that came to mind while you were speaking was not just the long-term plan, but also take into consideration the economic impact that the long-term repairs on these buildings that are going to continue to degrade, continue to get worse, and not to take into consideration the reduced operation costs that building that new facility will reduce. I think David said $2 million. So I just feel like long-term, this is the most economic option for the community, as well as providing a brand new 21st century building to our students that can really take advantage of the technology that we're growing into as a society. So just, I think that there's more of this conversation than just dollar bills. I think that it is one that we have to have, but yeah.
Sorry, Kieran hit on a couple of other things that I was thinking about. I mean, just in terms of, you know, the amount of money that we have to pour into these older buildings just to keep them going, you know, as things continue to fail, keeping all these systems going, the amount of work and money that costs, you know, we should be reinvesting that money in renovating or building new buildings instead of just basically lighting it on fire, keeping these buildings going. And we also need to think about too that, you know, these buildings were designed in the 50s, the 60s. They are not designed for the way that we educate kids today. They don't, you know, especially the older buildings don't have appropriate spaces for special education. They don't have electrical systems to support the types of technology we use in the classroom today, because they really have not seen any significant improvement since, you know, those times. I mean, when a lot of these buildings were built, we didn't even have overhead projectors, let alone, laptops for every kid. So, there's a lot to think about in that. And I mean, the way that we do special education today, the buildings like South Range and Derry Village, they're basically a bunch of standard sized classrooms, a gymnasium and a cafeteria, which are the same room. And that's it. Like if you go to some of these schools, you'll often see a lot of kids from, the special ed rooms out in the hallway because they don't have the kinds of rooms with breakout spaces that, are what we think about what we are doing in the classroom today.
Jason, I know you were on the facilities committee as well. Anything you want to add?
I mean, Michael hit it, and basically, this is early on, but I think where projects of this magnitude have such a long runway that we have to take action early and really kind of lean in against what we have to do, both in the short term and the long term. And David said it, I mean, these things, these types of projects can run in parallel. But as we kind of all alluded to on the June 20th meeting, or the majority believe that a new school is what's best for the district, and the administration also believes as much. I think we need to continue to work hard against both of those with regards to an overall strategic plan to keep things moving. The one thing Brenda brings up a good point of, the good question, and I guess maybe direct that towards the admin, would be the why right behind doing it now. And maybe Austin, Joe can answer why redistricting now and then having another change again, just to kind of clarify that and provide some context to it. But listen, Michael talked about it. We all spoke about it at the last meeting. 130 million is like a baseline of what our schools need, inclusive of South Range and Derry Village. It's an astronomical number that doesn't fit into any type of budget that we could write. So many things, and if you parse it out and look at what's needed for just kind of baseline repairs and maintenance versus retrofitting for 21st century, it doesn't make sense when you think to put money into a building 60 or 70 years old that virtually equals the sum of what a new building would cost. And as Jane had mentioned previously as well, bond rates are fairly favorable at this point. And I think it makes sense to work hard against what the majority may believe to be the best option for the students and faculty moving forward for the long term. So they're not faced with these issues in 10 or 20 or 30 years or 40 years down the line with deteriorating buildings or buildings that are falling apart again.
So my real question is, why are we moving forward with a completely different educational model? We're going to disrupt every school, every household, every classroom, every teacher to move forward to build a new building. If we believe, and I'm saying we as a group, if we believe building a building is the right thing to do, then why are we trying to save $2 million, disrupting what everybody does, disrupting children's education, moving kids from one school to another into different transitions to move them into a new school? I believe, and I'm not there, but I believe that if you all believe the right thing to do is to build a school, that's where you should focus your energy, not going through this consolidation plan that is a lot of work and is only going to make things more difficult. And we will take 10 years to recover from what we do with this.
Can I ask if the building a new school would change the curriculum coming up? The curriculum changes that we're making now with the 5, 6, 7, 8 model, is building a new school interfere with that?
So I think the thing we have to remember is the space right now is at the middle schools. And the lack of space is at the elementary schools. So the idea that the administration came up with for moving the 5th grade to up out of the elementary schools was to switch that around and create the space where we need it the most in the elementary schools. I am a firm believer that the town of Derry needs a new school down the road sooner than later. They're building a new fire station in town, and they're going to close the old station. So this is something we are doing here in Derry right now. It was voted on. I think it was the correct vote. I think we need a new up-to-date fire department building, which will no doubt help the firefighters as well as the people in the town of Derry. And then they're going to close a old and obsolete building. I understand that when we come to schools and we start talking about neighborhood schools, that becomes a little bit more personal. But if you think of it that way, it's the exact same thing. We have old, out of date, obsolete, and we're looking to get new, up-to-date a building. And I do believe we need to do that. But I still believe that we're looking at an elementary school. I still believe that we cannot build a massively huge school because that's going to cost an exorbitant amount of money. We might be able, in this situation, to actually build a smaller school than the one we first put on the books, which I believe is one of the reasons that LaValle Brenzinger is getting involved again. So I agree with some of the people on the board that talked about we've got to do a number of things. I think one of the things from the facilities committee that made sense to me was one of the school board members mentioned we need to have a plan that talks about everything. That's why we came up with something for down the road about South Range, about looking at Derry Village now and looking at that space later on. And some of the things we need to, as we're trying to do, put together the maintenance plans about what we're going to tackle first and, how that's going to roll out. But yeah, it's a process that all has to happen. When I look at what we're doing now, moving the 5th grade, I am excited about what I'm seeing with the creation of the curriculum and what's going to happen at this intermediate school. And that will open up the availability at the elementary level to close a school. If we don't go forward with that, we just put in a new building, we're putting off the inevitable, and we're also putting off savings and what I've heard from some of the people here about the ability to start working on some of those projects. So those are some of the thoughts that the administration has. Those are some of the things that we've been talking about. And I do believe that the Facilities Committee is on the right track. We need to let the town know what our plan is for everything moving forward. And I do believe we have to keep talking about we need a new school, just like they talked about we need a new fire station, because I know it didn't happen overnight.
Over 20 years.
Say that again?
That's been in the works for over 20 years.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, so I'm hoping that a new school will not take 20 years to happen, but I would say then, some people believe you got to keep bringing it to the public, you got to keep talking about it. Well, I think that's one of the things that needs to be done so that people start hearing like they heard over time. I didn't realize it took 20 years. But, we need a new school in the Derry Cooperative School District, just like we needed a new school when West was built, just like we need a new school just like we needed a new school in 65 when those schools were built. At that time, it was just building a building because the enrollment was getting bigger. This I liken to the fire department, where they have an old obsolete building that they're going to be able to close and open up a brand new one.
But that's my question. We're talking about buildings. I understand the buildings. I understand the problems in the buildings. But in the process, we have 3,000 plus children that we're going to disrupt by moving them, making these moves. We're going to close a school to open a school. I'm having a hard time understanding that logic, but I don't need to go there. But my point is, kids, we have all of our children, K to 8, who are going to be moved and moved and moved when there's a plan to build a new school. And why not wait until you have that plan settled and on a ballot and see what the temperature of the community is before you disrupt the education of everybody in the town? That's all.
Well, I do agree with that, and I said this before. I wish we put this on the ballot this past March, but we didn't. So I do believe that we need to put it on the ballot. But to use your own words, we can't wait 20 years for a
Fire
new
department-
school.
Well, I'm not going to get into the town, but
Well,
they waited a
okay.
long time because there were a lot of other things going on. We were building schools. There were needs
Yep.
of other
Yep.
places. So they waited, and that's a whole nother story for another day. My concern is what we're doing with our kids' education. I've not been quiet about it. I don't think it's the right thing to do. And now that I know that there's a definite move to put a school on the ballot in March, it makes less sense to me, because they are our kids, and we're disrupting their education, in my opinion. And the curriculum is great, but the curriculum can be in a K to 8 school, it can be in a K to 4 school, or a K to 5 school. It doesn't have to be in all these different transition buildings.
We disrupted their education with every single building we have built.
Not
correct?
like this, not like this.
Well, so it's tough to disagree. It's a public forum, but I don't see your take on it. Is there disruption? Yes. I believe the disruption is going to be beneficial. When you see this new intermediate school and the curriculum that's going to be developed and the team concept that's going to be developed, I believe it's going to be better for the children of Derry. So there's two ways to look at everything. Because things get disrupted, sometimes you have to disrupt things to make them better. So I don't look at disruption as a completely negative thing. And when I see what the potential is, when I see that everybody in this town now, as a 5th grader, will be completely together with everybody else that's a 5th grader in town, it takes a lot of the transition angst away when they go to 6th grade, when they go to 7th, when they go to 8th, because the number one problem is, who am I going to sit with at lunch? Who are my friends? Well, they're going to have those now as 5th graders instead of as 9th graders. So, there's disruption. I agree with you 100%, Brenda. I just think that sometimes, change, I don't know how many times in this past year I've said change is hard, but I've seen a lot of changes, and more often than not, they're beneficial. But it is disruptive. Change is disruptive, and it's hard to go through it. But I do believe that we are going to do good in the end for the students of Derry. And I think we need to move forward with this plan to open up the availability of space at the elementary schools. And I think that will help with the potential of building a new school as well. But yeah, I am concerned about how long it may take to convince the public that we need a new school, so.
Just a couple of things I want to say. I think leaving that June 20th meeting and thinking about the next steps in the process. I think it's only logical to say, hey, yep, we've just decided to close the school. But as Michael has alluded to, as many of us have alluded to, we still have a substantial amount of repairs, renovations that need to be done. I know Jason also brought up the bond rates that Jane had alluded to as well. And so, I don't know if, and I've said this before, there's no motion on the table. The plan is that we move to a 5, 6, 7, 8. We find a place for the SAU. We move deep to Barca. Like that. I know those are things that we've talked about. There's nothing finalized yet. I know Austin has mentioned tonight that should be presented to us, no later than September, which I'm looking forward to. But I think, these conversations are ones that need to be had. We don't get the opportunity to do this very often. We get once every 2 weeks if we're lucky. Over the summer, we get once a month. I know we've had many conversations, and, is this now another opportunity for us as a board to get together and do a potential Saturday workshop, which I know I would love to do with my Saturday morning, but, I think these are things that are necessary, and again, it's, we have to figure out what the next step is, right? Again, we talked about this, the plan to close the school was the next step. The next logical step after that, figure out if we're gonna renovate, what the costs are gonna be, what projects we're choosing, and how we're gonna do that. I think as we go through this process and we look at the layers of the onion that we're peeling back, every time we try to get more information on our aging schools, the news is getting worse. It just is, right? Like when we opened up Dairy Village and South Range and we peeled back the wall, that was not good news. That was worse news than I think any of us expected. And so the costs are continuing to add up and add up. And we are at an inflection point where we have to make a decision of, for the long-term benefit of the district, are we going to continue to disrupt and hopefully make positive change from those disruptions? Or are we going to do the major renovations that need to be done and invest? And so there's two sides to that scale, I guess. We have to find, I think, a happy medium there. And so, again, I think, it's, trying to think of the right word, like it's great that Jane's at a conference. I think it would have been beneficial to have her here tonight, but it is what it is. But if we have the financials, I think once we can continue to wrap our head around them, that's, again, another variable as a part of this equation that needs to help us all figure out what the best next step is for the district. I agree, with what Paul mentioned about, this seems like we're paying a second time for something. I'm not sure if that's, again, we haven't made a decision that we are going to be building a new school, so there's no decision that's been made yet. And even if a school were to be put on the ballot in March, then the construction on said school probably wouldn't start for, so that'd be March 24, wouldn't start until probably the 25 summer, and then wouldn't be done until 2027. And so as we are thinking about these things, yes, these are decisions that need to be made, in the relative short term, in the next 6 to 9, 12 months. They have a longer time frame and lead time that, we can't let more and more time pass because we're continuing to, have South Range that needs a new roof that I think has 2 to 3 years left, according to the roofing reports after we do those repairs. We have like the structural repairs that need to be done on that. And so I think one of the things that we've all heard out of these meetings, whether it was last year when we had a public session or was the June 20th meeting, is if we were to close a school, what happens with that land, whether it's Dairy Village, which we did close, or, if it's South Range. So in the future, if South Range is a school, or Grinnell, or whichever school is a potential, I agree. I think having some sort of plan, like doing a park, would benefit that community and the greater Derry community better than, just a sitting, aging building. So again, it's hard for all of us, including the administration, to have these conversations and, have the opportunity to talk about these in public because of the way in which, we can have meetings and have discussions. So it's important that we do have these, tonight. But I think maybe, I don't know, a workshop between now and the next meeting, which I know is not ideal because it's August and we're heading back to school soon, but I don't know if everyone else wants to kind of chime in on that, if that's something that as a group, we need to figure out what's the next step forward. And I don't know if that is building a new school. I don't know if that is renovating and repairing the existing schools that we have, but we do have to figure that out in short order.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to spend as much time talking about this as we possibly can. So if that's a workshop or whatever, that's great. And I mean, in this, proposal from La Valley Brensinger, it's about, they came to the board, before I was here. What was that, early last year? Before that, yeah, and gave a presentation of, all of their different ideas for what we could do with all the buildings. And now we have a much more targeted plan. We kind of know what we want to do, and we just need to see it on paper. And that's what this is about, having a plan that we can then take action on moving forward. And just a few other things that I was thinking about. I mean, with the 5, 6, 7, 8, and how that affects students. I mean, I know that you guys with the administration have said that you love this plan, and irregardless of everything that we're talking about with buildings, you would do this anyway. That's something that's been said before.
We are excited to work on this plan and believe we can improve curriculum and instruction and what we deliver to the students with this new intermediate school. And it will also allow space at the elementary schools where there is none right now.
Yeah, that's an added benefit. And then I do like the idea of kids, all the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th graders being together as they transition. They'll be going to a new school, but it will be with the same kids. It's not like when you leave your smaller elementary school and you go to the bigger middle school, that is disruptive. It's new kids, it's a bigger, different environment. And the other thing in terms of, we talked about the redistricting, if we were to build a new school, is that, with the location of where that school would be, virtually all of the students that would be at the school that would be closing would be the ones going to the new school.
How can you say that? How can you make that statement? When we're gonna have a completely different district. So you can't say that the kids that go to that school now would be the kids that go to that school in the future, the new school.
Well, I mean, it's the geography of it. I mean, just with where that it is located.
We'll see. I don't think you can make that statement,
I mean, it's a hypothetical at this point,
but people believe it because it's been said before. I'm just saying, I don't think we should make statements like that because it's not necessarily true. We should be careful.
I think the larger point too is when we redistrict, by the time you build a new school, most of those kids are going to have moved on to high school or out of, onto Pinkerton. So you're not going to be redistricting people twice if that's the concern that's being raised. Because I don't know, whatever how long it takes to build a school, by the time it gets voted in, it actually gets built, it could be 4, 5, 6 years from now. So the assumption is, I think it's a pretty safe assumption, is you'll never redistrict the same child twice. Am I wrong?
I don't know, David,
Because if you're in kindergarten today and it takes 6 years.
I don't know. I have a granddaughter going into kindergarten. If this plan continues to move forward, she will be in a different school next year. She'll go to kindergarten, and then she'll be in a different school. If you build a new school, she will absolutely be in a different school, and the very big potential of her being redistricted again.
Yeah, I think
It's way too out there to even make those statements right now.
Yeah, I think it's like Michael said, it's hypothetical. Again, of course, nobody can tell the future. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. Sure. So maybe we shouldn't speak in, I guess, finalities or, but anyways, I think all in all, for me, we as a board, as a district, I think we need to continue to take more of a longer term approach and longer term look at, everything in our district. Again, I think, even going back to David, you and the transportation committees work on that, right? I think we need to continue to have longer term outlooks on everything in our district. And, again, facilities is probably the biggest, piece that, we have an opportunity to cost control more than anything. That's the one thing that's within our control. So, like I said, I think, again, appreciate the conversation. I think if people have a consensus about, doing a workshop, as I suggested, in the next couple weeks, maybe we start putting out some dates and we can figure that out now, or, I can throw out some dates later this week to everybody, if that's a consensus. If not, then, we can just continue this discussion at the next board meeting.
I do think it would be productive to come together and try to fine tune what path we're going to be, and if it is a collaborative path of how can we do that most productively. I just feel like more conversation between us on, okay, this is the big picture, and then these are the details of what we have to do in the next few months to get there, I think is helpful. So I'm all for a Saturday workshop.
Yeah, and I know I threw out Saturday because we did that before. It can be during the week as well.
It doesn't matter to me.
So yeah, again, just depending on everyone's schedule. So I don't know, is everyone on board with potentially doing a workshop?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So do we want to look at a couple weeks out from now, or would you guys prefer if I just sent out an email asking if people are available, on X dates?
I don't have a calendar with me, so I couldn't
Okay.
commit.
Okay, I will follow up later this week then. Perfect. All right. Anything else from a facility standpoint? Actually, do we want to talk about the Davis demographics? I guess that's probably the next. Yep. We should probably cover that before we move on. Austin, is there anything you wanted to, I know you sent us an email telling us to take a look at, pages 2 and 4 specifically, or maybe, yeah. But is there anything specific from Davis demographics that you need, or that you
Yeah,
want
I
us
thought
to
they were-
take notice of? Or, I know that eventually we will have to probably vote on spending money with Davis demographics.
So, the reason I focused on, there was a little bit of MGT advertisement, I thought, but that's fine. That's what they gave us. We met with Lorne, the representative from Davis Demographics, and talked about the thought process of preference being to redistrict the Derry Cooperative School District to the other 4 elementary schools. So for the time being, not to redistrict all 5 of the elementary schools, and they're looking into that option. Came up with a couple of dates in September, if I recall, September 3rd, 13th. 13th. Yeah, thank you. I am not used to looking at this. Is fantastic. I can actually see it without my glasses. September 13th, which would be administration, and then some community stakeholders on September 14th. And the idea is it would be up as a plan for 3 to 4 weeks for public to look at and have input and so forth and so on. They talk a little bit about, I actually don't see page 4 in mine here,
It's
but
not in here.
their background and what they do and who they are. So it makes sense, since they have done enrollment projections and so forth for us, have worked with town officials like George in planning and so forth, and know the town from before, that you guys allowed for them to put forth a proposal for this. And then, as I said, they're going to have a couple of meetings. They're going to put it up for people's input, so that others, other than people involved on the 13th and 14th of September, can have input as well.
Should we do an all-in with this, obviously, and then an enrollment projection moving forward, since we got some new development that we keep getting reminded of in town? Does it make sense to do that all at once or separate it out?
I apologize, David, what do you mean?
So these guys do enrollment projections too. We've been reminded ad nauseum that we have a lot of construction going on in town. So would it make sense to, while we got them here, to do this project and then also do the demographic project at the enrollment, looking at potential kids coming to the district with all this construction going on?
You're talking about like enrollment projections, like 5, 10?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, again, that would be, that's more than the redistricting. I would make some assumptions that they probably do need to do some of that to get an idea. They can't just look at what the demographics are right this moment and put forward a proposal. I would assume that they're going to be looking into the future with some of those projections. So I don't know that it would be that much more for them to, do an enrollment, but that would be something that if the board wants to go forward with that, I'd have Jane talk with Lorne again and find out if there's more to this proposal or if that's something that would be done as part of it anyways. And as a matter of fact, we could ask that question and then get back to the board on that.
Yeah, one thought that just crossed my mind as we just had this discussion about the future, right, and redistricting. So they mention here PDF scenario maps. Is that, if when we have this workshop, once we kind of continue on, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but if there is, the new school on the horizon, is that something that they can say, hey, if we were to redistrict now, if we fast forward 4 or 5 years, can we see the potential where, how many kids would, and hopefully it's 0, but a number greater than 0, if they are redistricted multiple times, what we can wrap our heads around there, because, I don't know, again, in various examples, yeah, if younger kids in the district there may be a possibility, depending on where they live, that, they start at one elementary school, new school gets built, they end up moving there again. And so just trying to think about those. I don't know, maybe that's a question we can ask them as well, is what can we actually do with those scenario maps? Are they only static to this year and upcoming year, or can we really project it out in the future?
That's a good point.
Yeah,
I don't know if anyone has.
Potential impact.
I guess like pros and cons.
Yeah, and I mean, I know the other thing that comes up whenever we're working with vendors, I know we have an extensive history with Davis Demographics. Should we be, looking at elsewhere at other organizations that do similar things? Whether that's, if we were to put it out to bid, I'm not saying we have to or we should, but I don't know, with these things that are going on, that's very important. Obviously I want to make sure we're crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's, and, we play out every scenario. And again, we continue to put the district in the best possible position. So I don't know if that's, again, Joe and Austin, you guys might have more experience with Davis Demographics and those types of companies where we might just say, hey, they're really the only ones in town I see here. They're seems like they're doing quite a lot of acquisitions and mergers, so they might be gobbling up all the competition around here anyways.
Yeah, this is something that comes up a lot. You know, this went out to an RFP way back when these guys were chosen. So I don't know if it's something that there's an expectation every time, or do you assume that you may end up actually saving some money in the long run because you chose this particular company at the time of the RFP, and we're basically having do some of the same type of things, and it does make sense to me that you have somebody that's already been doing this. You chose them after the RFP process. You said, this is the company we want to go with. And and of course, if you hate them and don't think they did a great job, then why would you have them back? But if you thought they did a good job, I don't know, it makes a lot of sense to have them. It's almost like a continuation of what they're doing, sort of like the LaValle Brenzinger. You know, you do the RFP, you pick them. Would we want to have another company that's going to come in and start from scratch? Reminds me of the bus company conundrum that we get into with, well, if we look for another bus company, they got to build a place. They've got to, stock it with buses. They've got to find some land, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It seems like we've been pleased, and we've felt like Davis has given us good figures that have stood up over time. So it would make sense to me that just continue to utilize the company that's been giving us a good product and working with us. We've been happy with how they've worked with us, et cetera, et cetera.
I did have a question. When attending the committee where the teachers and facility staffs came, one comment from a teacher really got my attention, where she mentioned that we don't really know what the school's goals are or where we're going, or so is there any kind of direction that this would provide for facility staff and teachers, and of where we as a district hope to go in the future so that they can align with that?
I think Davis Demographics is more about the people,
Yeah, no, I hear that.
not necessarily the facilities or any of the curriculum or
Okay, so that
activities,
answers my
so,
question. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Davis Demographics, from, everything we've seen has been accurate. So I would say continue on with that, but wasn't sure if there was any other thoughts. All right. Any other facilities, comments, questions?
Do we have a cost on this?
So I think on the printout, I think the page was left off. So if you look at the online, or you look at the folder that we got, it shows a cost. I think it's $20,000 for the boundary and
$2,500.
planning. So I think it's on
It's on page 2.
page 2, yeah. All right. With that, we will move on to a presentation about the fruits and veggies program. I believe that's going to be Kim.
Okay, so the Fruits and Vegetables Program is a federally funded program. It is really great. The kids get introduced to new fruits and vegetables. They get really excited to try them in the cafeteria. Last year, Grinnell School has been fruits and vegetables for several years. And Barker School last year got this program, received it, and now Derry Village School will be receiving it this year. It's based on free and reduced lunch. Any questions?
Yeah, my question is I know we have 3 schools that qualify for it.
Yes.
Do we do anything for the remaining schools so that every kid has similar access to fruits and veggies?
No, they have, they really do. It's federally funded, so they get all this, fruits and vegetables that are introduced and new fruits and vegetables.
So the reason I ask is I figured that the answer was that, but I know we also, I don't know, you guys may have seen it, I think it was today or yesterday, that we got an email about the delegate assembly. I think again, it's in October. Last year, we had talked about food insecurity. This is a program that, again, I think it baffles me that it's not just something that, if we're going to give to one school in the district, you should just give to the district, but that's
I agree.
that's the federal government for you. But maybe it's something to consider in this upcoming budget as well. Is how do we again? Yes, they qualify. It's a federal program, but I think equal access to everything, including anything at school. Food is one of those. I think is important. So it's just maybe something for us to consider as we approach that delegate assembly. Maybe it's something else we double down on and submit another. I can't. Proposal.
Could we build a club at the other schools that is around gardening and like build a garden in their back? Like, could we do it more club oriented?
Yes, I think we could.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's great that we have three. I don't know. It's double-edged sword. It's great and it's not great that we have kids that qualify for it, right? It's great that they get those things that they may not be getting at home, but it stinks that they're in that position to begin with. But yeah, these programs I think are very important to the success of every student as well. And there's probably some students at the other schools that they probably fall into the same boat as some of those other kids at the schools that qualify, and they don't get those same opportunities either. So if there's anything that we can do, I'd love to hear suggestions that we as a board can support, whether that's through our own budget or through the delegate assembly or through maybe it's conversations through the legislative liaison.
I think you alluded to it. The New Hampshire School Board Association just sent something out. They are still looking for resolutions, and they can still be submitted. So if this group wants to think about maybe making a resolution around the food and veggie program, that might be something that could be brought in. I believe they said the date is now Saturday, October 14th, if I remember correctly, for that meeting that you went to last year.
Yeah, so I guess to wrap that up, if anybody feels so compelled, I would say, maybe by the first meeting in September, come with a resolution, and maybe that's something we can, again, present to the delegate assembly. But yeah, I think it's just continue to have a conversation. It's great that those kids have access, but anything we can do to continue to provide, that'd be great too. Thank you, Kim. Then I think we're now moving on to Fiscal Advisory Committee appointments, and I'll pass it back over to you, Austin.
So we have 6 returning Fiscal Advisory Committee members, and Bruce Kling, who's been an active Fiscal Advisory Committee member, finished his 3-year term, and now you have his application in your packet. He would like to return for another 3-year term, and I would put his nomination forward.
Do I hear a motion on the table?
Motion to approve.
Yeah, first by Kearney,
Second.
second by Jason. Any discussion? No? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Bruce, for volunteering for that. Thank you to the other 6 members as well, and for returning, and we really appreciate that. Austin, I know, I off the top of my head, I can't remember. I know, so that gives us 7 members generally. How many people do we have? So we have 9 positions usually, so that means 2 others are left.
Yep.
So does that mean, like, anybody?
I believe it was a June 30th.
Okay,
deadline.
So that's the deadline. So we'll just kind of move forward with what we have.
It's
Again,
not required that you have all 9.
right.
And I think it's important that we have people that want to be there and will show up and do the job that we appreciate them for. So thank you to Bruce Kling, and I would second all the other returning members.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one last thing before we move on for that, like, just for those that are watching, you know, again, this is a great opportunity for anybody that wants to learn more about the budget process, learn about some of the tough decisions that we have to make. I think, you know, for many people that may want to get into possibly being on the school board in the future or running for election, I think that's also a great opportunity for you to, again, not only learn more about the process, but great relationships with the administration, understand some of the things they're going through, and hear from, you know, the different people that are coming. Obviously, these are recorded as well, so continue to be there. But, you know, I'm going to be very honest. I've sat up here many times, and I've had people sit on the opposite side, and they say, you know, maybe I will get involved, or maybe I will run for election. Well, put your money where your mouth is. That's all I'll say. It's very disappointing knowing that we have nine positions open and only 7 of them are filled, and only one person decided to participate in that. So again, for those of you that are out there and want to get involved, there are opportunities. Please take them. All right, we'll move on to policies. I believe these are, I'm not gonna read them all off.
Donation.
Oh, did I miss that? Donations. All right, donations.
So the family, we have an Ernest P. Barker family that wants to remain anonymous. So we are going to keep the name out of the public at this point, but we want to thank that family for a $1,000 donation for books, whether it be to the library. I believe in talking to the principal, Dave Brown, they're going to stock the book machine first and foremost, so there'll be a full book machine for kids to receive free books from. And then any extra would go to the library. And that donation is for $1,000, and I'm hoping that the board will vote to accept that.
Move to approve.
We have a first by Brenda, second by David. All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes 7-0. Yeah, like Jason just said, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, and glad to see that we have some great people in the community that are able to donate. So with that, now we'll move on to policies. I believe these are all first readings. Is that correct?
These are all first readings, and I'm going to move the mic over to Joe Crawford, who did the organization and bulk of the work getting this going with these, help from Kim Conant, help from Jane Samad, and some others from the SAU leadership team. Joe?
Sure. I'm not sure what specifically you guys would like to, how you'd like to go through these, because there's 13 of them. If there are specific policies that you want to just the broad strokes of what are the big changes, I'm happy to answer questions. I'm not exactly sure. What would you guys like?
Yeah, I was thinking about this when I was reviewing the packet, and the first readings are always like all right, what are we looking at, like, right? And so I go back and I'll try and compare and contrast.
I can give you bullets for each policy if it's easy. I mean, I've already typed out notes of major, but we don't have to go one by one. I mean, some of them are like one word.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say the ones that are like maybe one words, we can hopefully quickly get through those, and just maybe we say, hey, just take this is a change from the principal and designee or whomever, whatever those things are. But yeah, major ones, I think definitely we should cover in a little bit more detail. Anyone else have any other requirements?
Yeah, so I mean, the very first policy alphabetically, BBBF, is regarding student members on the board. We changed, I think, one word to include sophomores because Pinkerton Academy elected a student representative who is a sophomore, but our policy said juniors and seniors. So, so that is the gist of that change in that policy. I'm going to keep moving.
Nope, I have a question.
Oh,
Just going to say, and who happens to
oh,
be
yes, he's here tonight.
Andy?
I didn't want to call him out because he's sitting in the audience. He's not up here in public.
So quick question. So did Pinkerton have this policy prior to their election? Because my question is, I mean, you know, we talked about having a good working relationship as a board and Pinkerton, and I'd like to know if they had this policy and if they paid mind to it, or it's just an oversight. It could be it too.
My sense is it's an oversight because it's fairly new, you know, over the last couple of years that there have been students. Yeah, I mean, it's on our website, so currently it still says on the website juniors and seniors.
And I believe the RSA allows for, I think, any upperclassmen, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So it's in line with that as well, so. Yeah, an oversight is not ideal, but, you know, I think it's great to, I'll say this, have an engaged representative. I think if you don't know Anthony, you'll get to know him very soon. He's very, comes to quite a few meetings, if not all of them. So it's great to continue to have engaged participants in this. So, you know, looking forward to that. And yeah, thanks for the update on that.
So there's 12 more. I don't know if you want me to keep just bulleting.
Roll, Joe.
The BEA policy is about this meeting. Your existing BEA policy specifies West Running Brook is the home of meetings. If you want to move your meetings here, the change would be to move this policy, specifies that. The next one down, CFAA, elementary school assistant principals. This is we have a question, and, you know, Kathy, I'm not sure if Kathy's still here, really wanted to question whether or not this policy still belongs as a policy. I guess years ago, before my time, the board made a decision to pull all the sort of job description policies out of policy and just have them as job descriptions. This one still exists. It's still out there. So we made a decision to bring it up. You guys can decide if you want to pull it off. But in the meantime, it has inaccurate information. So several years ago, the board increased the number of days that elementary school assistant principals work from 215 to 220. But this policy says that they work 215. So at the very least, we recommended that the policy be corrected. So that's it for the CFAA one. The DG purchasing policy, DJ purchasing, just very small language changes specifying that the business administrator is operating under the supervision of the superintendent. So a couple of words changed there. DJB, which is purchasing procedures. Again, very, very small word changes around business administrator under the supervision of the superintendent. I should say in general, we also reviewed all the policies for like bias-free language. So we tried to make sure that all the language in talking about our students and our families is inclusive and really represents our true families. So we may have inserted the word guardian in some cases to sort of represent that. Cut me off at any point. Probably DJB-A, purchasing policies, is probably the first policy that we have here that has some real content changes. So this policy specifies how we use credit cards to make purchases. A lot has changed over the years. We're finding more and more vendors refuse to take purchase orders. They only take credit cards, especially when you're attending conferences in other states. So as part of that, we'd like to increase the credit limit on the credit card. Right now, it's listed as $5,000, which is far too small for a $100 million organization. And what that ends up doing is we never pay interest because we pay off our balance every month, but we run into problems where the credit card is maxed out and we can't pay for trips to conferences and things like that because our limit was so low. So that's a substantial or a substantive change. And just, we wanted to clarify the procedures related to credit card purchases. Yeah, so the new limit shall not exceed $35,000 is what it says in your copy there. I'm going to keep going unless I get a signal from you guys to stop. DKC is expense and travel reimbursement. This policy also has some substantive changes. Really what we're trying to do is update the reimbursement procedures to make them more aligned with the practices in like government offices. So like for instance, meals and incidental reimbursement, we had just a flat, you can only spend $35 a day. What is done at the federal government level is it's indexed to the city that you're going to. So we said instead of making up random numbers, why don't we benchmark our reimbursement policies to the government policies. We also did the same thing with mileage. In our old policy, it wasn't clear on the mileage rate, and we said that we would just use the IRS mileage rate. It seems to be what really all businesses are doing. It's what we've been doing, but we actually didn't say we were doing it, so we just wanted to clarify that. Clean up some of the procedures for how someone gets reimbursed. Well, not a lot of the language change there in terms of in sort of what is reimbursable, but it's how you need to make sure you follow all these rules. Policy GBAA and JBAA. I'm going to talk about them at the same time. They're both sexual discrimination, harassment, and violence policies. There are no substantive changes in those policies. The G one is personnel, the J one is for students, but the policy lists the name of the Title IX coordinator. And what our recommendation is we instead say the position who serves that role. Because right now it says the Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Austin Garofalo, is the Title IX coordinator. So we thought it made much more sense to say the Title IX coordinator is the Assistant Superintendent of Schools. Their contact information can be found on the school district website. We've updated that website, so now you go there and it says Title IX coordinator, Joe Crawford, Assistant Superintendent. Here's his phone number, here's his email address. But not having to change the policy every time a new person takes that position, we thought it made sense to remove the name. So that's the same GBAA and JBAA. The two exhibits, those are just forms, reporting forms. Because they were tied to the parent policy, we just brought them in. We just cleaned up some of the formatting. They're like, there's lines where people write, and I think if any of you remember from that subcommittee meeting, we just made it so that there was more space that people could actually write in their information. I know I'm moving quick. I've just got a couple more. JLCA, physical examination of students. So this was brought up by our nursing staff. So Sue Linehan kind of leads our nurses. She's outstanding. She's been with us a long time. And they raised a concern that the policy called for all students to have a physical before starting school and then another physical upon going to middle school. There is no requirement for that at the state level, and it was something that really wasn't enforced. We weren't kicking kids out of school for not having a physical when they went to middle school. So their recommendation was, let's stay true to what the legislation says, which is a physical upon entering school. Now, parents can still opt out of that physical. The state of New Hampshire has a process for that. So we just clarified that you don't need a second physical when you get into middle school. That was that change. The very final policy, JP-R, is student athlete regulations. And actually, these two policies are both brought up by our nurses and they're related. They also talk about the requirement of students to have a physical before playing athletics. And that is a rule of the NHIAA, the New Hampshire Interscholastic Athletic Association, that basically parents need to ensure that their children are physically safe to be able to participate in that sport, and that is in our policy. And so what we just clarified is that they need one before they can play on an interscholastic sports team. There is no process to waive that, as far as I know, because it's an extra thing, sports. I hope I clarified all those things.
Joe?
Okay.
Brenda?
So I have a question about I need my glasses. JLCA. So I know that there's an option in the law that gives, and I would need to probably get legal opinion on it, but gives us the option to stretch out that opportunity to give kids conditional enrollment. until they have the physical, and I don't know what that process would be or what that would look like, but could we look into that before this comes back to a second reading?
Yep. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna say, it's the 311, I don't know what the rest of it is, law. I have it written down at home, actually. I don't have it here. And the other thing that is, there's, in the first paragraph, where it starts, no medical examination shall be required. It would make more sense for that second line to be below the parents and guardians of transferring students, so that it flows better, in my opinion.
So the second sentence should go into the second paragraph?
Under the second paragraph, right? Because we're telling people what they need to do, whether they have children that are coming into school now or whether they're transferring in, but we're also giving the people who, the children who are coming in now, the option of opting out because of their beliefs, right? So it would make more sense that it goes for both groups.
Okay. And just to clarify on that very first point you made, the first sentence does say, have a physical examination within 1 year preceding first entry into school. So we do have a window of a year. Do you want that further clarified?
I would really like to have it clarified so that we can just be sure that we're following what that law says.
Yeah, there's a Department of Ed policy that says basically the district can determine the amount of time that this appointment can be pushed out, but that a child can be admitted to school so long as they have an appointment to get a physical.
So does that 1 year work, or do we
It sounds
need
like that's 1 year
something more?
preceding. So we'd be talking about if they had a physical.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You're right. It
1
does say
year
preceding.
prior.
So
what
if it's
we'd be
within
talking about in this
the
project.
preceding year, but we need a timeline for.
A timeline for how, so long as they have an appointment that they can be admitted, and what the timeline would be for them to have that appointment completed.
And is there a form for that we need? A specific form to note, or specific something to notify families as well of that timeline?
Okay.
And I have one more question. Did the policy BEDH come up in this? I wasn't able to attend the meeting, but we talked about it in the last meeting that we would bring it back up again. I don't see it in here, so I'm guessing it didn't come back up.
We did not discuss that. There was conversation at the school board about waiting for the fall legislation to come out. We do believe that there will be some updates to that policy, and the School Board Association will give us information that that policy has to be updated again. So we were waiting to get the updates from the legislature and the New Hampshire School Board Association.
So that could be a whole year out, I'm just saying. I would like to look at it again at the next, whatever the next policy meeting is. And I would also be in favor of removing the job description from the policies. It probably doesn't really belong there.
Yeah, I would too.
Brenda just mentioned.
Okay, yeah, sorry. He had whispered to me, don't forget, come back to that. Do you guys want to remove that policy? Sorry, you just said it. So.
I think that's logical. It makes
I'll make
sense.
a motion to do it.
Second.
A motion to remove policy CFAA from the policies by Brenda, second by Kearney. Any discussion on that? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes 7-0.
JLCA, are we just making those prior to the second reading?
I think we're good there. So it sounds like we're all good with the other changes that were made. JLCA, we just might need to, I don't know, finesse it a little bit. I don't know what the right word is, change it a little bit. And then BEDH, put that on the docket for the next policy subcommittee meeting.
What was the question, though? Did you have a question?
Well, just so prior to the next school board meeting, you'd like us to propose some language to address those concerns in JLCA, right?
Yeah, since it'll be the second reading, so we can
great. Yeah, we can certainly do that.
And maybe it's not something that needs to be in there, I'd just like to be sure.
Okay.
And I know, I think, I don't know, with these many, I know we've used Diane, or I guess solidly because like for a language change, right? For like DJ and DJB, that might just be a word here and there. Okay, we don't run those by, okay. But anything else with any significant changes? or
We
change the
did
word?
check on the legality for the BBBF to make sure we were following along with the laws, just to make sure on that one. But normally, we would have just added the term. And
Okay.
that's what we did with the vast majority of those. If it was just, like Joe said, formatting and changing a word, removing the name, so it's just the title.
I agree.
No.
Perfect. Maybe we just run JLCA by Diane as well, just to make sure. Because it sounded like there was a New Hampshire ed law that I just want to make sure we're in alignment with, so. Okay. Anything else from policies? All right. All right, Austin, superintendent update, you're up.
So, short and sweet tonight. I want to thank school board members that voted for this venue, Dave Karen, town manager, the Derry Town Council, who have graciously invited us to use this beautiful and professional space, and Owen Preventure, who gave us our outstanding orientation this afternoon and overall assistance in acclimating us to this new venue, and we look forward to having our school board meetings here. The other thing I just want to talk about is I love my job, but I do love summer, and time to relax and refresh and rejuvenate while we all prepare for what's coming up for the new school year that we all know will begin before we know it. I'd like to be positive that the weather is improving as of late. I know it's not saying that much considering all the rain we've had, but I hope our students and families, our staff are all enjoying time with their family and friends, and we'll be looking ahead to returning in August for another school year. At next meeting, I will have important dates. I'm just going to start now by saying our teachers come back on Wednesday, August 23rd. Sixth grade orientation and kindergarten and new student open house is that following Monday, August 28th, and all of our students report for their first day, full day of school on Tuesday, August 29th. Thank you, and please enjoy the rest of the summer.
They return on my birthday.
Any questions or comments for Austin? All right, thanks for that update. And you don't see any FYIs, so I think we can move on from that. Committees, start with the manifest.
I move to approve the manifest in the amount of $8,052,726.26. Of that, we got general payroll of $5,282,118.39, and general expenses of $2,770,607.87.
We got a first by David,
Second?
second by Paul. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes 7-0. Any other committee reports? Trying to think, I don't think I've had a committee meeting lately. Anyone else?
I've just been in policy.
Both policy and facilities.
Yeah,
have
no,
been
yeah.
pretty much covered.
Exactly, I agree,
all
I
the
agree.
pertinent topics on those two.
All right, well, with that, we will open it up to delegates, individuals. Welcome, you know what, come on up, I get, speak in a microphone. I think green means you got plenty of time, yellow is, you got 2 minutes and 30 seconds, or you've up to 2:30, so you got 30 seconds left, and then red, is your visual indicator to wrap it up. But come up, state your name, your address, and yeah.
Good evening. My name is Tom Wood. I'm I was a resident of Derry from age 2 to age 8, moved to Salem, and moved back to Derry in 2018. And, this is the first time I've heard a lot about, the issue was it okay, moving students around, but was it back in the 1970s, the Salem School District, they moved the sixth grade out of the elementary schools, actually out of, the Woodbury School to make room for more 7th and 8th graders, and where they put the 6th grade, they put it in the in one of the second floor of one of the wings of the high school, and that was a 100% disastrous decision in 2020 hindsight. Want to know why? Because there was scumbag high school students who were invading the 6th grade space and selling beer and dope to 6th graders. Also, another concern of mine is that I've heard about the loss of several, qualified, important, special education individuals. I myself am a person with autism functional level 1 and cerebral palsy who never had any supports in the school systems in Derry and Salem. And this is before there was special education. And and I've also heard or mentioned the fact that special education students being segregated out into hallways, and there's not enough space for special education students. Make the space. And also I'm also on the board of directors of Asperger Works, a nonprofit based in Haverhill, Massachusetts. Our specialty is helping the young people to take and transition out of school system IEP plans and try to help them navigate how to become employed and to maintain employment. Because the unemployment rate of young people and also of all ages on the autism spectrum, all the way up into senior citizens, is like 80 to 90% unemployment of those who could work, but who are not not given the chance to work, and to be able to take and also be part of the community and not being and end up getting segregated, pulled out of the community. So there's a lot of things to consider, when you have talking about issues with facilities, the special education program needs.
Hey, Mr. Wood. Sorry to interrupt. I want to make sure you have time to speak. I see the red light, but I would make a motion to extend your time to continue.
Sure, I like that.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Let me talk more about we have transitioning to employment is one part of transitioning out of individual educational plans, which are mandated by the IDE, Individuals with Disabilities Educational Act, from decades ago. And they have, part of the transition to employment it's not just the academics, you know, to have the child with the special needs. Well, I don't like to use the word special needs. The child with a disability, to was it not just graduate academically, but also you have to start thinking about the transition to adulthood, not at around like age 17 or 18. You got to think about it starting around the 5th and 6th grade to make sure the kid has got the academics, plus also the child with disabilities can also be taught the skills necessary to take and become as independent as possible, to be able to live in the community and to participate in the community and to be happy and to take and lead a fulfilling life. I am an example of this because I went to Grinnell. You know, the school was at first, second grade. Mrs. Scott and Mrs. Snyder, you know, my second grade teacher, Mrs. Snyder. The third grade was the first year that the South Range School was a brand new school building. You know, it was the state of the art at that time, you know, for the school facilities. You know, that I spent most of that year there. Then parents moved to Salem for my father to be closer to where he worked at Raytheon Corporation as an engineer. And of course, I went to the Barron School in like 4th and 5th grade. That was a brand new school building in Salem. Then the 6th grade was part of the Woodbury school system, the junior high. You know, 6th, 7th, 8th grade was it in the same building as was it like in the West Running Brook and the Gilbert H. Hood middle schools. Then I went to Salem High, you know, graduated in 1976. And then I because I was high enough functioning as a person on the autism spectrum, I did attend and I graduated from Wentworth Institute of Technology in Boston. I first received a 2-year associate in engineering degree in electronic engineering technology. And then I went out to work, and then I went back to school for the final 2 years to get my Bachelor of Science degree in electronic engineering technology. But even so, you know, because of my being on the autism spectrum, you know, that there was no services, you know, no state services, or even was it the State Department of Vocational Rehabilitation did not know what to do with an adult with a 4-year engineering degree who was on the autism spectrum, and the only thing they could figure out was to have me go to some company, entertainment company over in Nashua to take and bring toy robots to kids' birthday parties. When the last job I ever worked at, you know, with a company in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, I worked for 5 doctorate-level engineers, you know, helping them and their engineering staff to design, prototype, and build innovative robotic silicon wafer handling systems for the semiconductor processing manufacturing industry, of which, you know, makes all of the innards of everything you buy, from phones to your TVs and you name it. So that my thing is whether that it's important to take and it's not just the academics for the special special education students. It is also the importance of especially for the students on the autism spectrum, to teach the what is known as the hidden curriculum, to be able to know how to behave, how to take and take instructions, and also to take and do things like apply for employment. Okay, to learn how to take and go through a job interview, and to take and to advocate for oneself, to take and to be the best that one can be, and to be a productive citizen here in the community. And of course, for the last 20 years, I have served the Derry Community Public Access Television for 20 years, producing independent content as the longest serving volunteer. And I'm still active with other things in my life, such as my faith community at First Parish Congregational Church, as being a member of the board of directors of Able, New Hampshire with Disability Civil Rights, and also with Asperger Works, where we're still trying to take and our goal has been lately, because we don't really have a specific programs to help students, with it, or young adults. We're trying to educate employers to take and look at persons on the autism spectrum and to be as potential employees who are not troublemakers and who would bring value to the economy and in the communities.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, anyone else?
Good evening, Richard Tripp, 44 Wyndham Road. I have to agree with Austin. These are much better accommodations than what you had at West Running Brook. And even though I thank the previous board for putting up the TVs, big screen TVs in the corners, the screen up here is much better. When you get older, your eyes get worse, But I got a couple comments to make on one of the policies that you guys talked about tonight. It was GBAA. I try and do due diligence to make sure that I'm prepared for the school board meeting. So I went through the policies, and as Joe said, the GBAA, the change there was fairly minor in that they took Austin's name out and put the assistant principal, assistant superintendent. I also did a search on the district's website to try and find out who the Title X coordinators was, and when this was like a day ago, and I couldn't find it. So maybe if you've updated it just recently, then that would be it. But if you go a little farther down the page, it says the district shall post the Title IX coordinator's title name office address, email address, telephone number, and conspicuous spaces throughout the school buildings. Now, I'm not in the schools a lot because I don't have any kids, but, you know, when I went to the school board meetings before, I would walk in and I would look around because they have the art stuff on the walls in the hallway there. And I never saw where the Title IX coordinator's name was posted conspicuously, you know. So I don't know whether you guys actually do that or not. If you go to page 5 of the policy, it makes reference to the district will make all materials used to train Title IX personnel publicly available on the district's website. Well, I didn't find that either. And you notice I mentioned page 5. Well, there's no page numbers on these policies. So I would like to make a recommendation that you, these appear to be Word documents. You know, you can put page numbers on, really easy. The last thing I have to say about this is going through the, that was 3
I hate to
minutes.
interrupt you. I would make a motion to extend your time for another 3 minutes.
All right.
Second.
All right, sorry, I didn't do this last time. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Well,
Motion
thank you.
passes. Go ahead,
Thank
Richard.
you. I didn't see anywhere in this policy where it requires the superintendent to comply with ED 510.01, which is that he or she report all charges of misconduct against the credential holder within the school or district or school administrative unit to the director or designee, which is basically you have to tell the Department of Education person. If you'd like, I'll leave this with you. One last thing. I thought the discussion you guys had about the facilities was quite interesting. I was sitting here and I'm going, well, I wonder how much money you're actually going to need next year. I assume you'll have another annual budget of about $100 million. And then you're talking about, you know, building repairs. And somebody mentioned $130 million for the building repairs. I believe I'd also heard that you had planned that it would take about 4 years to do all these repairs. So that's another $30 million that you're going to be asking for. I know last year that you instituted a SIP program where you're going to start putting money into SIP accounts so that you don't have to go to the voters every year. You'll have a little money in reserve. But I don't know if you're going to ask for more SIP money next year, but I know Brenda had asked about the cost for redistricting. You know, I don't know how much money you're going to ask for, but it seems like it's going to be substantial. And if you were talking about being transparent in what the board intends to do in the next year, well, I think it would be a benefit to let people in the town know roughly how much money you intend to ask for. So that's all I got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Anyone else? All right, last call. All right, that wraps up delegates and individuals. I do have I didn't know when else to bring these up, so I have a couple questions regarding other business, but I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to. No? Okay. Just a couple questions. I know we talked about meeting with the Fiscal Advisory Committee at some point earlier in the process. just checking in on where that may be, and if we can, if we as a board should expect to see a potential meeting times coming up, maybe in August or early September. I don't know, Austin, if you have any updates regarding that. And I know, obviously, we just reappointed Bruce and filled out, like, we had the 7 seats, but I wasn't sure if that's something that we have as in process yet.
We were waiting for the final tally of who's on the Fiscal Advisory Committee, and I think we would need input from the board as to when the board would be interested.
Perfect. I will ask you guys for those as well when I reach out about the facilities workshop. Next question. I know, I don't know if it was last meeting or May or June, we talked about kindergarten enrollments, and we obviously shifted or added a teacher. I don't know exactly what, whether it was adding a teacher or moving a teacher back. Any updates on where kindergarten enrollments are looking, and did that kind of rectify the situation we were up against?
Yeah,
I don't think it's on.
sorry, Owen.
Okay, so that's rectified. And then the last thing that I had just as an update, and is just the updates regarding the water testing. I know that Jeremy and Jane have been working on that, so I know they're not here tonight, but if you have any updates on that, that'd be great.
So we are still waiting for Gilbert H. Hood to come back from the testing. They've done some more testing with the company that we've used in the past to get some more readings on some of the ones that were over. We're waiting for the results on that.
Okay. Those are the 3 things that I wanted to ask. I don't know if anyone else had anything else, but I think, David, you might have had something.
So just a update from a previous conversation, I can't remember what meeting it was, might have been a couple meetings ago. We had received estimated numbers for our adequacy aid for fiscal year '24. So I think, as I mentioned, over a 2-year period, Derry will get about $1.92 million over that 2 years. And then originally the House had passed us to get $5 million over 2 years, and the Senate did their thing, and it brought it down to 1.9. But the next update, I think we all got the email, so I'll just kind of summarize the email we got from the School Board Association. So, as we all know, we're in the lower property value districts, and one of the areas that we benefit greatly by is something called hold harmless. So the state's going to allocate $63 million per year, right? So we, as a district, get almost 10% of that money. Compared to other districts, it's not even close. So one of the conditions of that money, though, is starting in fiscal year '26, the state is going to start to claw back over 10 years, so 10% a year, right? They're going to start claw back in that money. So that's $600,000 a year that will be taken away from us starting in fiscal '26 over the next 10 years, unless something changes, obviously, which it could. On the flip side, they stabilized expectations on the adequacy aid to a 2% annual increase, which sounds good, but when you look at the categories they're doing it on, it's a $500,000 increase as a number for us as of today's enrollment numbers. So if you do the math, you take away 627, you add 512, everyone can do the math, right? That's negative money, unless something changes starting fiscal year '26, which it could. I mean, these guys flip-flop on this stuff all the time on adequacy. There's no rhyme or reason for what they do with it. They kind of shoot by the hip with this stuff. So we kind of roll with the punches. But my biggest concern is, we have 3 to 4% increases in our budget year over year, right? That's what it's roughly. So as Mr. Tripp mentioned, we're going to pass the $100 million threshold this year. So we all can do the math. $3 to $4 million in expenses, negative revenue increases, tens of millions of dollars in repairs. We have a lot of work ahead of us, and it's no secret. I mean, everyone's articulated what we need to do. But I just want to kind of give that information out there. Unless something substantially changes in the next 2 fiscal years, it's not looking too favorable for us as a district from a state reimbursement perspective. One thing I had mentioned to Austin and Joe when we met last week or whatever it was, no, 2 weeks ago, we should get the state reps and senator in a room and have Jane explain to them how the funding process works with the adequacy aid, because I don't think they understand. Because if they did, particularly our state senator, we wouldn't see crap like this. She would understand what her vote in the finance committee did to us.
So School Funding Fairness Project actually does presentations to the boards and committees. If that's something that
Yeah.
we want to do, they can come in and do that presentation.
Gotcha. No, that's good. But, in all fairness, as Mr. Tripp has alluded to in the past, these guys are on numerous committees. Education's not always on the forefront, and I get that. But I think it'd be helpful if we proactively in the next year or so bring those guys in, give them kind of a presentation on how the funding works in our state and how it negatively affects Derry. It is what it is, but it's something that we need to be proactive with, and as we do our budget, having projections going out and understanding where we're going to look is vital. But so this is just the latest update. This came out a couple weeks ago, but it was kind of it's distressing, obviously. So that's what I got.
So David, when you say invite, you mean invite him here to one of our meetings and?
Whatever form, I don't
Okay.
know what form, whatever form.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, right, is that?
I have no thoughts, it was just a general thought I was having. I think it's worth our while to have them understand how the formula works and how it affects us.
What about
And that's not to say they don't know, but I think they need to understand, when people come to the podium and say, where's the money going, we should educate them on that. And I think that would be a exercise worthwhile at some point in the future.
Would that joint committee be a good place to have that, where we already meet with the state reps and the town council?
Yeah, I mean, we have those conversations, but I think it's beneficial to get all 11 in the room
Yeah.
at the same time.
And also having it for the community to hear as well, I feel like would be really productive.
Yeah, so I think David, that's great information. It's again, it's like you said, distressing or disappointing, seeing us continue to kind of be up against it, and the onus continues to be put back on, the homeowners in, this town, because that's the only way in which we can pay for some of these things. And so what I would say is maybe, let's take the next 3 or 4 weeks, let that ruminate, and then, exactly, yeah.
I would be happy to
Start
reach out
thinking
to.
about some creative ideas where, whether we write a letter to Senator Birdsell and the reps and invite them here and to participate in a presentation, or is it the legislative liaison or some other form in which we can have those discussions? But yeah, definitely important that, we have that, we know that information, we're preparing for that as we get closer to that, because it's not taking effect right away. But let's think about that and try and figure out some creative ways where we can continue to have or bolster the relationships that we do have. Anything else? Anyone else want to? All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Second. Oh, motion to.
First by Kearney, second by David. All in favor? All right, well, thanks everyone. Have a great night. Thanks for coming out.